In today's video, we talk about if you have good muscle building genetics or not. What is going on, guys? This is Paul Revelia from ProPhysique.com coming to you with video number 1 from 2017. And please comment below if you noticed, like I did, that the last week of the year was really rough. I don't know what it was. I was unmotivated. I was having to force myself to do things, kind of going into the gym, getting on the computer. I don't know what it was. It was like this weird place. And I actually was starting to wonder, like, man, am I just losing motivation? Am I kind of like out of it? And that question was answered this morning when I could not wait to get up and get going and get on the computer and start working and plan my day and go to the gym, which I haven't done yet. But the point is, I'm back, and I hope you guys are too. So let me know below if I'm alone in that, because I often find when I'm feeling something, it's commonly going on. Maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe you guys were fired up all last week, but I don't know if it was just because it was the end of the year and it was kind of ramping up, kind of winding down one year, and I don't know, it just felt weird last week. First things first, we have a location if you would like to come say hi to myself, Lane Norton, or Emily Hayden, this Friday night at 8 p.m. in the Promenade in Santa Monica. We are going to meet up outside of Starbucks. So please, if you just want to come have a chat at 8 p.m. Santa Monica, come say hi. And if you can't make that, I'll be at the LA Fit Expo Saturday and Sunday. So it's going to be an awesome weekend in LA. I'm going to do some video content with Emily. I have hired a videographer. He's a client of mine. He's going to come and shoot some videos for me and edit them and put them out. So if you guys are looking for other video content from myself, this is an experiment, because I can't go to fitness events like the LA Fit Expo, like the Arnold, and be involved and meet people and shoot video and edit it and keep up with clients. So I'm experimenting. I'm going to have someone take care of that entire process for me. And if it goes well, if you guys like the videos, make sure you let me know. I'll do it more often. I find it's very valuable for me because I can enjoy the event, get to meet you guys, and keep up with my clients, which is my #1 priority. And overall, I'm just learning as we go. So we're going to start early on in 2017 with a videographer. And I'll introduce you guys to him this weekend, as he's going to be doing the videos for me. So the topic of today's video, which you clicked on so you already know, is genetics. And the reason I want to talk about genetics is because it's something that doesn't get discussed often. And I did a video last week talking about abs, and it came to my attention when I talked about what's more important, the kitchen or the gym. And what's often overlooked is how important genetics are. But for a good reason, but I'll get into that later. So what I want to talk about today with you guys is the specifics of genetics and how you can determine if you have some good muscle building genetics. Because let's be honest, we all want to succeed. We all want to do very good at things. And if you have a predisposition for being successful at something, it's going to keep you motivated for a longer period of time. So let's talk about specifically what does it mean to have good genetics for bodybuilding. There's quite a few things at play here. It covers a broad spectrum of terms. But the first term I want to discuss is going to be muscle fiber type. Do you have the right muscle fiber type to be good at bodybuilding? Well, unless you get a muscle biopsy, which is very painful, where they actually stick a needle in your arm, pull out some muscle, look at it under a microscope, you can't really know what type of muscle fiber you have. But here's one thing you can do. You go in the gym, you start lifting weights. When you lift weights, you sleep, you eat, you recover. After a couple weeks, if you start to notice some pretty substantial changes in your physique, you start to notice muscle building up rather quickly, then this is a good indicator that you have some good muscle building potential. Another way would be if you've never really lifted weights and you've just been kind of active your whole life and people always think you lift weights, or people put you in that category of strong or a lifter, or they just kind of stereotype you based on some appearance factors. I tend to notice like high traps, wide shoulders, dense arms, these kind of muscle groups that are easy to spot. That's a good indicator that you may have potential to build more muscle all over. And that is a very cool thing, because that's not something that you can really have much to do with. But if you go in the gym and the first couple times you lift weights, you notice changes, or you already have that predisposition, it's gonna get you fired up to keep lifting longer. And if you don't notice these quick changes, or you don't necessarily have a physique that people think, gosh, you look like you lift, like myself, well then what are we gonna do about it? I'm gonna discuss that more after I explain to you what I consider the genetics that we talk about when we say, what are muscle building genetics? The next topic, so basically muscle fiber types, type 1, type 2, and you can delve into the different types, 2A, 2B, 2X, but there's an endurance muscle fiber preference, and then there's a fast twitch muscle fiber preference. So those of us that have more of the muscle fiber for quick twitch, these are gonna be your sprinters, your vertical leapers, your people that have a lot of dense muscle on their bodies. But like I said, we'll get into a little bit more of that, of which matters more later on in the video. So that's just the first indicator, muscle fiber type. The next, and possibly the most important factor, would be insertions. Another factor, and possibly the most important, would be muscle insertions. You see, all of us have the same muscles. We have the same basic anatomy. We have a bicep, we have a tricep. Bicep is 2 muscles, a tricep is 3 muscles, hence the names. But you get the idea. But although we may have the same muscles, we have much different muscle insertions. And muscle insertions can create a vastly different look. So let's just do the most obvious one, the one I can do on camera with you right now, and let's talk about a bicep muscle insertion. Now, other muscle insertions that are super important are like lat insertions. Some people have a high lat insertion, some people have a low. Quadricep insertions can make your quads look narrow if they're straight up and down. They can make your quads look sweepy. The same amount of muscle, but it can look completely different. And I'll talk about more in detail. But let's just go over what I mean by muscle insertions and what you can do to look at your physique and determine if you have good muscle insertions. Most people have a few good insertions here and there, but very few people have good insertions for the entire body. Those that do will look like a freak very easily. So let's go over what the bicep looks like. So if I'm to extend my arm and you see the muscle insertions, basically the distal end of the bicep inserts in here, right? In the elbow. Now, if I am to contract this muscle right here, now you see where the insertions start, right here. This is a contracted or shortened bicep, right? And this has a lot to do with how your bicep looks when you flex it. Some people will actually have a bicep that inserts into the elbow even when contracted. Some people will have, even when their arm's extended, the insertion will be up here. So what would I consider my arm genetics to be? I'd say they're average. I don't have a fantastic looking arm when flexed. However, because my muscle inserts all the way at the elbow when relaxed, I kind of look like I have a bicep muscle. Now, if we want to talk about somebody with fantastic muscle insertions for a bicep, look no further than my friend, Doug Miller. Now, a lot of people are familiar with who Doug Miller is. If you're not, I'll post up some pictures here so you can kind of get an idea. I'll stand over here so it looks like the news. Doug has fantastic bicep insertions. He also has amazingly dense muscle fibers in his bicep, because even though he's got a ton of distance in his bicep, he also has a complete thickness to the point where it looks like his arm is an alien arm, even relaxed. He just has freaky muscle insertions for biceps. So that's something you can look at. You can begin to look at your physique in a way where once you've got a little bit of muscle, you can say, do I have good insertions? Do I see my traps when I train them? So this is a trap insertion. It's very high on my neck. Thankfully, otherwise I would have a giraffe neck. Actually, I did growing up. And I'll show you, actually, here's some pictures of me. Now, when I'm talking about myself early on, what I have thought that I had good muscle building genetics held to the no. And here's why. The taller you get as an individual, and I'm 6'3", the more difficult it is to have good muscle building genetics because the insertions tend to get shorter to make up for that length. Now there are some tall people who have fantastic muscle insertions, but as a general rule, in my experience, the best bodybuilders are in the 5'8" to 5'10" range. The shorter you get, when you get to somebody like Flex Lewis, who's even shorter than that, and has amazing muscle density and has amazing muscle insertions, that's where you get a truly elite, multi-time Olympia champion bodybuilder, because he also has another genetic trait that we'll talk about later. So the two that we've talked about so far are the muscle fiber types and insertions. So let me talk about the third and the final thing I'm going to talk about as far as genetics are concerned when it comes to building muscle. Because if you have great genetics as far as muscle fiber type and you have great genetics as far as insertions go, you're going to have one thing left that's going to determine if you're going to be a person who has an amazing physique or not. And that is determination. That is grit. That is mental toughness, or just a love of the sport, a love of the process of putting muscle on. You see, for a lot of people, something that comes easy, they don't have the interest in as much as someone that craves it and wants it no matter what cost or how long it takes to get there. I believe, from my perspective, the reason I'm so consistent and I love the gym is because at an early age I was extremely thin, and although I was very athletic and loved playing sports, I was often considered overly skinny. I had a funny nickname growing up, Bucko5. Like, I had all these things that kind of play in the back of my head, and to this day I feel like there is an element to my psyche that just wants to put on more muscle and be bigger. And I don't even know if I got to 300 pounds of shredded muscle that I would consider myself big. It's just a simple fact that it's kind of built into my psyche. Whereas someone that at 15 years old can do 100 push-ups a day, have a massive chest, meet all the girls and get all the accolades and be great at sports and have no problem, they might not actually have the same passion for it because it comes so easy. So the final genetic marker is going to simply be love and passion for the sport and the process. Because if you have that, you can make up for a lot of shortcomings in the other two areas. And that's something that I've been alluding to talking about at this point. You see, if you realize that you don't have the perfect bicep insertion or the perfect lat insertion, or your quads don't have the same sweep as a Mr. Olympia, or your traps don't come up as high as Goldberg, well, what do? Does that tell you that you should just quit? No. No, that's not the way I look at it. You see, some people, your haters, your detractors, the people that want to throw shade on your life are going to tell you, well, you know what? You're never going to play in the NBA, so why do you shoot baskets 4 hours a day? Simply, you love the process. You love the sport, okay? You don't have to be Michael Jordan to be great at basketball. You might not be an NBA champion, 6-time MVP like Michael Jordan, but you can still do amazing things. Do I think I will ever be the greatest natural bodybuilder on the planet, or even in the realm? Absolutely not. But I put myself in the gym and in the kitchen every day in a position to make progress. And so I've done with my physique what I consider some pretty fantastic things compared to myself. Now, when I stand next to Doug Miller, when I train with Doug Miller, when I look at these guys like Brian Whitaker, when I talk about my client Ray Clark, let me show you some pictures here. Ray Clark. This is Ray Clark. This is my client. He's 6'1". He's too tall by bodybuilding standards. But guess what? Ray carries a ton of muscle. Ray is basically an NFL linebacker in a natural bodybuilding body. He is a freak, right? And then we talk about somebody like Brian Whitaker. Brian Whitaker gets on stage and competes under 170 pounds and yet looks like this, right? And here's an early picture of Brian Whitaker. So you see, Brian simply stuck with it for a decade, for more than a decade, and has continued to improve. And so that's where I see the value in this sport, is that you need the third aspect. You need a love of the process to put muscle on. And as important as genetics are in that, the most important thing to consider about genetics is that you cannot change the first two. You cannot change your muscle insertions unless there's some new elective surgery that I'm not familiar with. You also cannot change your predisposition for muscle density. But you can change your determination. You can put as much effort as possible in and not worry about the other two things that you cannot change. I cannot make myself shorter, right? I cannot lower my lat insertions. I cannot lower my calf insertions, but I can train the hell out of my physique so that each muscle that I want to grow looks better. Because I will say this, when it comes to training weights, there seems to be a compounding variable where the longer you train, the more it appears you've actually changed your genetics. Now, are my genetics different than when I was 18, 19 when I showed you those pictures of a skinny guy? No, but I've put in training and lifting and eating for so many years that I have physically changed the person who I would have been had I never lifted and never followed a diet and not been involved in athletics. And that's what I'm most excited about, is that I've made all these changes over the last 20 years, and I feel like I'm in my prime and I'm just going to keep getting better. Let me post a picture here for you of a guy by the name of Marshall Johnson, 54 years old. This is Marshall Johnson, 54 years old, natural bodybuilder. Took 10 years off of the sport. Does Marshall have fantastic genetics? Hell yes. Does he also have a love for the sport? Yes. And that's why he looks the way he does, even in his 50s. And so these are the kind of goals that I set for myself. The goals that you set for yourself are going to determine your success. If you're someone that says, you know what, I don't have good muscle building genetics, I'm just not going to even bother, well then you're never going to know what you are capable of, truly. And that is something that you could possibly regret when you're older, when you don't have the ability to get up, to go to the gym, to eat your diet, to follow the plan. You cannot change your genetics. So spending time wondering, wasting, other than the fleeting, wow, I wish I had better muscle insertions, or I wish I had denser muscle, I wish I had the Doug Miller, I wish I had the Ray Clark, I wish I could get shredded like Brian Whitaker. Sure, I have those thoughts all the time. But what I find is that sticking with this process day in and day out gets me closer and closer to that goal of looking my all-time best and being my own motivation. Thank you guys for tuning in. So excited. Click subscribe. We're almost at 10,000. I have some exciting news. I don't want to share too much, but I'm going to be giving you guys away something pretty soon when I reach that 10,000 mark. Had a great talk with Doug Miller this morning. For those that are Core Nutritional fans, discount code is PaulR20, only at corenutritionals.com for all your supplements, 20% off. Please come see me at the LA Fit Expo if you're going to be there. If not, I will see you at the Arnold Expo or at Powerhouse North Tampa. These are the 3 best places to find me. Have an awesome January 2nd. 2017 is underway. Let me know if you had a down week last week like I did. Very curious about that. Let me know some of your plans for the new year. Let me know some videos you'd like to see. But most of all, have an awesome day. Let's get this train moving forward. Thank you guys. Have a great day.